Alrighty, welcome to MTG Anonymous. We are on my least favorite of the 4 Precons, but it's actually one of the most balanced of the 4, so it has some issues early on, but as you know, I like flying, so this deck does what I like, and so it's probably going to be the first one at the command of the Brawl decks that I build. The leader of this deck, the Faerie Schemes, is Alayla, Artful Provocator. I'm not very good with English, so Provocator is what I'm going to call it. If you think it's something else, or if you know it's something else, feel free to comment below. So, for 1, a white, a green, for 1, a white, a blue, and a black, excuse me, it's a 2/3 legendary Fairy Warrior, I think. Looks like Fairy, or Fairy Warlock. Fairy Warlock. It has Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink. Other creatures you control with Flying get +1/+0, and whenever you cast an artifact, enchantment, create a create a 1/1 blue fairy creature token with Flying. There's a lot of text on this, so excuse me. There are 3 keywords on this creature, and I like keywords too, so we'll go over the keywords. First, Flying. A creature with Flying can't be blocked except by creatures with Flying or Reach. Death Touch. Any amount of damage a source with Death Touch deals to a creature is enough to destroy it. And Lifelink. Damage dealt by a creature, planeswalker, or spell with Lifelink also cause its controller to gain that much life. We get value from casting artifacts and enchantments, and every deck wants to do that. You could legit get away with only playing artifacts and enchantments in this spell, and Enchantress actually works pretty well. But we're going to go over the rest of the cards. This deck does not do that. The way the Precon, it prefers to balance everything out so it doesn't do crazy things. First we'll go over the 1-drops. We have Witching Well, Bag of Holding, and then Scrabbling Claws. Witching Well is for 1 blue, an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. And then for 3 and a blue, sacrifice it, draw 2 cards. Pretty self-explanatory. It's an artifact, so you get a 1/1 whenever you cast it. Well, if this is out, then you get one when you cast it. And then scrying, first time we've gone over this keyword, look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them on the bottom of your library and the rest on the top in any order. You get to pick the order, so if you have 2 cards that you want, you can choose which one you draw first. Bag of Holding for 1, it's an artifact. Whenever you discard a card, exile the card from your graveyard, and then for 2, tap, draw a card, then discard a card, and then for 4, tap, sacrifice Bag of Holding, return all cards exiled with Bag of Holding to their owner's hand. So it's pretty good if you can keep it. When you discard a card, they're at an exile, and then when you do the bottom ability, you get to return those cards. So basically, the things in Bag of Holding are literally just holding until you destroy the bag. Scrabbling Claws for 1, it's an artifact. Tap, target player exiles a card from their graveyard, and then for 1, sacrifice Scrabbling Claws, exile target card from a graveyard, draw card. Why do I like this? Because you can tap and exile a card, and then if they don't exile the one you want, then you can pay 1 and sacrifice it, and you can exile a card from a graveyard. I like this card for Krovald too, but why do I like it here? It's a 1-drop, so you get a 1/1 fairy. Next we got 2-drops, Corridor Monitor, All That Glitters, Ancestral Blade, Frogify, Arcane Signet, Golden Egg, and Guild Globe. Corridor Monitor for 1 and a blue, you get a 1/4 construct. When it enters the battlefield, untap target artifact or creature you control. Why is that important? Well, because 1 is an artifact creature, so it still triggers Alayla. And then second, you can untap after you've attacked, and so then basically pseudo-vigilance. It's okay, it's not great, but it's not bad. You get the 1/1 with it, so. All the Glitters, for 1 and a white, you get an enchantment aura. It says enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. Seeing as this deck has a lot of artifacts and enchantments, it's good. Ancestral Blade for 1 and a white. When Ancestral Blade enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token, then attach Ancestral Blade to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, equipped for 1. It's a cheap artifact, so I like it here, but 1/1 doesn't actually do much. It can save Alila from some effects, but it can also bring her closer to other ones. So, Frogify for 1 and a green. 1 and a blue, excuse me, I keep doing that. You get an enchantment ore. It says enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a blue frog creature with base power and toughness 1/1. It loses all other card types and creature types as well. So this is important for the Night Tribal deck. And then if you do this to an opponent's commander, it's a lot easier to deal with, especially since they lose all abilities. So. Next is Arcane Signet. Like I said, Brawl staple. For 2, it's an artifact. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. So in this one, it would add white, blue, or black. Next, we have Golden Egg. We saw this in the last deck. For 2, it's an artifact food. When Golden Egg enters the battlefield, draw a card. And then for 1, you can tap and add 1 mana of any color. For 2, you tap sack, gain 3 life. Guild Globe for 2, when it enters the battlefield, draw a card, and then pay 2, tap, sacrifice it, add 2 mana of different colors. It's a 2-drop, draws your card, and then you get a fairy, so I like it. Moving on to the 3 drops, we have Animating Fairy, Imperial Eagle, Shine Chaser, Shambling Suit, Mace of the Valiant, Prison Realms, Winged Words, Law Mage's Binding, Mortify, Heraldic Banner, and Mana Geode. Mana Geode for 3, enters the battlefield, scry 1, and then you can add 1 mana of any color. 3-drop that gives you mana, and then gives you a 1/1, like it. Heraldic Banner for 3, it's an artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a color. Creatures you control of the chosen color get +1/+0, and then tap, add mana of any color of chosen color. Excuse me. Blue is more prevalent in this deck, as you have blue creatures, and then this makes blue tokens. So more than likely, you're gonna pick blue for this deck. Next, we have Mortify for 1 a black and a white. Destroy target creature or enchantment. It's more important in the other decks that are going against this one to have it, but you don't have much creature removal in this deck, so it works. Law Mage's Binding for 1 a white and a blue. It's an aura with flash. Enchant creature. It can't block, attack, or have its abilities activated. Really, you'd want to do this on your opponent's turn when they think they're going to get to attack with something. You flash this in, you get the 1/1, and then they can't attack with it. Next, we have Winged Words. It's 2 and a blue with sorcery. This creature costs 1 less if you control a creature with flying, which more than likely we will. Draw 2 cards. Prison Realm for 2 and white. It's an enchantment and enters the battlefield. Exile target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls until Prison Realm leaves the battlefield. When Prison Realm enters the battlefield, scry 1. I like this card because it doesn't say opponent, so you can exile things you control and then use Mortify to destroy it. I wouldn't recommend that, but it's pretty good. You can trigger enter the battlefield effect again. So, Mace of Valiant. We've gone over this last deck, but we'll go over again. For 2 and white, it's an equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on Mace of the Valiant and has vigilance. When a creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a charge counter on Mace of the Valiant, equipped 3. Vigilance, as attacking doesn't cause a creature with vigilance to tap. We want that for Alila. It has a flying, it has death touch, and it has lifelink. So we can block every single turn with it, and we can attack. So that means we can gain quite a bit of life each turn. And then also, we're going to have quite a few creatures entering the battlefield, especially with Alila's trigger. So it's way worth it. It's more worth it in this deck than it is in the Night deck, but in the Night deck it's not bad either. Next we have Shambling Suit. For 3, you get an artifact creature construct, which triggers Alila. You get a 0/3, and its power is equal to the number of artifacts and or enchantments you control. There are the most enchantments and artifacts in this deck, so it's perfect. Shine Chaser for 1 white and a blue. Flying Vigilance, it gets +1/+1 as long as you control an artifact, and gets +1/+1 as long as you control an enchantment. It's pretty rare that we won't control both of those, so it's a 3/3 basically with Flying and Vigilance. I like it. Empyrean Eagle for 1 white and a blue. For 2/3, it's a bird spirit. With flying, other creatures you control with flying get +1/+1. If you've seen any of my videos, you know I know this card. It's really good, especially when you make 1/1 tokens every time you play an artifact. So those tokens would be 2/2s, and then Alila gives them +1/+0, so they're 3/2s. Animating Fairy, it is our first adventure we've run into in this deck. First we have Bring to Life for 2 and a blue. It's a sorcery adventure. Target non-creature artifact you control becomes a 0/0 artifact creature. Put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. And then Animating Fairy is for 2 and a blue. It's a flying fairy with 2/2. Why do I like this? Because you can animate one of our mini artifacts, like the Scrambling Claws. You don't necessarily need this card that bad, so you can play it on here and then swing with it, and then you could still use its ability if you needed to. Next, Arcanus Owl. For Azorius ×4. It's all hybrid mana. You get a 3/3 bird with flying. When Arcanus Owl enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact or enchantment card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any random order. Why is this important? It triggers Alila, and then you get to search. You might find an artifact or enchantment in your top 4 to put it straight in your hand. We have 1/5/5, which is Massacre Girl. She doesn't really fit in this deck, because if you do use her, if you have a whole bunch of 1/1s and you just destroy your creature, but there's no telling. Massacre Girl for 3 a black and a black. It's a legendary human assassin. 4/4 with Menace. When it enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other than Massacre Girl gets a -1/-1 until end of turn. I skipped a whole bunch of stuff in the 4-drops, so we'll go back to that. Menace says a creature with Menace can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. I would replace this with either a 1-drop flyer or another mana rock. I don't like Massacre Girl in this deck. Or I'd also just replace her with another removal spell. She's okay, but she's not great. Especially since it can kill your commander. I don't like it. Let's go back. Angelic Exaltation for 3 and white. Enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks alone, it gets X until end of turn, where X is the number of creatures you control. With Alila, you can get a whole bunch of tokens, so she'd be able to swing with her lifelink and death touch and flying and deal a lot of damage. Conclave Tribunal for 3 and a white. It's an enchantment with Convoke. When Conclave Tribunal enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls until Conclave Tribunal leaves the battlefield. And then Convoke says your creatures can help you cast this spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for 1 or 1 mana of that creature's color. Why do we like this? Because it makes a token after you cast it, but more specifically, you can use those tokens if you don't have enough mana, and you can tap those to make it cheaper. I like it in this deck. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's a removal, and we need removal. Next is Smothering Tide for 3 and a white. Whenever an opponent draws a card, that player may pay 2 colorless mana. If the player doesn't, you create a treasure token. Then treasure token says, tap, sacrifice this token, add a mana of any color to your mana pool. This is really good because this deck wants to have lots of land. So, it's really Smothering Tide's honestly good in any deck it's in. Chemist's Insight for 3 and a blue. It's an instant, draw 2 cards, and it has Jumpstart. Another keyword, Jumpstart. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other costs, then exile this card. It's okay. There are other ways you can draw cards, so. Kai's Wrath for white, white, black, black. It's a sorcery, destroy all creatures. You gain life equal to the number of creatures you controlled that were destroyed this way. Now that is what I like. Because we can make lots of tokens with Alila, we destroy those tokens, and more than likely Alila too. But if we get to gain life equal to the number of creatures we control that were destroyed. So this can save us in a pinch, and it also destroys our opponent's creatures too, so I like it. Next we'll go to our big drops. First we have Shimmering Dragon for 4 blue and a blue. It's a 5/6 dragon with flying. As long as you control 4 or more artifacts, it has hexproof, and then tap 2 untapped artifacts you control and draw a card. I love this card in this deck, because Smothering Tide, if that's out, you will definitely have 2 artifacts. So you can tap those 2 artifacts and then draw a card from it. You can get quite a good bit of card draw from this. Especially since we have lots of artifacts that can tap. So, Blood-Soaked Doctor, we went over this one last deck. For 4 black and a black, tap, pay 2 life, discard a card, sacrifice a creature, create a 5/5 black demon creature token with flying. Activate this ability only anytime you could cast a sorcery. Sacrificing the creature is really easy since we have a lot. We have 1/1s. Discarding a card is easy since we have card draw, and paying 2 life is easy since we have lifelink. So this card fits perfectly in this deck. Banish into Fable for 4 white and a blue. You get an instant. When you cast this card from your hand, copy it if you control an artifact. Then copy it if you control an enchantment. You may choose new targets for the copies. And then the spell is return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. You create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance. So you could possibly return 3 non-land permanents to their owner's hand and then make 3 white vigilant knights. That's pretty good. I basically like it because you can return your own artifacts to your hand and then play them again, make more fairies, and you get 2/2 knights. It's good. Saphira Sky's Blade for 4 white, a white, and a white. You may you may pay 1 white and tap 4 untapped creatures you control with flying rather than pay this card's mana cost. It has flying lifelink. Other creatures you control with flying have indestructible. It's a 7/7 legendary angel. This card's good because it's more than likely you're going to have 4 creatures with flying. And then the only one we haven't gone over in this keyword soup is indestructible. Effects that say destroy don't destroy a permanent with indestructible, and if it's a creature, it can't be destroyed by damage. Why do I like this card in this deck? Well, this card, 1, we can definitely get 4 creatures. In fact, we can get 4 flying creatures for 6 mana. If we play Gilded Globe, Golden Egg, Grappling Claws, and Bags of Holding, or actually Arcane Signet would be better. If we play any of those 4 together, we instantly get 4 creatures, and then having Arcane Signet, we get 1 white mana. So, we'll be able to play that really easy, really fast. You could possibly play this turn 4. Possibly. Next, Workshop's Elder for 6 and a blue. It's a 4/4 human artificer. Artifact creatures you control have flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have a target non-creature artifact become a 0/0. If you do, put 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Wow. So, not only do we give our artifact creatures flying, which there aren't many in this deck that don't have flying. The only one is Shambling Suit. But at the beginning of combat on our turn, we may have a non-creature artifact become a creature. Why do I like that? Because we can make our Mana Geode into a 4/4 flying, or Heraldic Banner 4/4 flying. I like it. It's really good. That's it for this deck. Are there any more new ones? Nope, that's not new, but it's good. For tap add colorless, or for 1 tap sack it, you may cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So, hold up all your mana and do that, and then you can play a whole bunch of artifacts on your opponent's turn, and then make a whole bunch of 1/1 fairies. This deck was a lot easier to go over. It's not bad, I just don't necessarily like the way they built it. I'd have focused more on artifacts than I would have on, like, Massacre Girl. Banish into Fable ain't bad, but it's not great. But regardless, if you liked the video, feel free to watch the last one. And also, if you liked the video, please like, comment, or subscribe. I'll see you later.